Hello everyone and welcome to this video on modelling components in Fusion 360. In this video we are going to model the Tophat spacer component that you can see on screen now. If you would like to follow along with this exercise, you can find an engineering drawing for the component in the video description below. Because this is actually quite a simple component, we're going to model this in two very different ways. In the first method, we're going to model this using two extrude features, and in the second method, we're going to model this using a single revolve feature. So let's get started with the first method now. I create a new design by going to the New Design tab at the top of the window, and the first thing that I want to do is create a sketch for the flange part of my geometry. So I go to the Create Sketch button, and I'm going to select the XY plane as the plane to sketch on. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to sketch two circles which represent the outside diameter and the inside diameter of the flange section of this component. And I can tell from my engineering drawing that the outside diameter is 50 millimeters and that the inside diameter is 10 millimeters. I'm happy with that geometry that I've sketched, so I can click Finish Sketch. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the Extrude tool, and I'm going to click on the 2D geometry that I've just sketched. And I know that I want this initial extrude feature to be 5 millimeters thick, so I can set that to 5 millimeters and press OK. Now I need to create another sketch which will represent the main boss feature of my spacer. So I go to the Create Sketch button, but this time I'm going to sketch on the top face of the flange that I've just modelled. Again, I'm going to go to my Circle tool, and again I'm going to sketch in a circle which I can tell from the engineering drawing is 22 millimeters in diameter. So I place a circle, I go to my Sketch Dimension tool, and I set this to be 22 millimeters. Now I also need to sketch in a circle for the central hole which runs through the component. I could simply use my Circle tool again here, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to project that existing geometry through onto the sketch which I'm currently editing. So in order to do this, I go to Create, I go to Project Include, and then Project. If I hover over the edge that I want to project, I can see it highlights for me, so I click this and then I press OK within the Project dialog box. What this has done now is it's added a line onto my sketch which will always be exactly on top of the edge of that initial bit of geometry that I've created. I'm happy with my sketch now, so I can click Finish Sketch. Again, I'm going to go to the Extrude tool, and again I'm going to pick the bit of 2D geometry that I've just sketched, and I can tell from my engineering drawing that this bit of geometry needs to be 20 millimeters tall. Now in the Extrude dialog box, I need to check that the operation for this extrude is set to join and that I'm not creating a new component or a new body. But now this is correct, so I can click OK here, and now I have the main body of the component. The only other feature that I need to model are the chamfer features around the edges. So for this, I can go to Modify and Chamfer, and I'm going to pick all of the edges that require a chamfer added to them. So I'm going to pick the first edge on the top here. I'm going to hold down the Control key, so this will allow me to pick multiple edges, and I can pick the internal edge here, and then the edge of the flange geometry. I can tell from my engineering drawing that this is 1 millimeter, and it's specified as a 45-degree chamfer, which means that I can leave the chamfer type as equal distance. I press OK, and that is all of the geometry that I'm required to model for this particular component. Okay, now for the second method. So again, I'm going to create a new design, and again I want to create a new sketch. This time I'm going to sketch on the ZX plane, and this time instead of using a Circle tool, I'm going to use my Line tool. And what I want to do here is I want to sketch a shape which is approximately the right shape and size for the section that I need to revolve in order to create all of my geometry in a single revolve feature. So for this particular Tophat spacer, this will look a little bit like an L shape. So I'm going to sketch something which looks a little bit like this. It doesn't matter at this stage that the sizes are correct, I just need to get the shape approximately right. That looks good, so now I can start dimensioning this. So I go to my Dimension tool, and I know that I want the distance between the axis of rotation, which is going to be this green axis here, and the inside wall of my component. That needs to be equal to the radius of the hole which runs through the center of the component. So I can tell from my engineering drawing that I need this to be 11 millimeters. Similarly, I know that the distance between the axis of rotation and the outside of the boss feature needs to be the radius for that particular feature, which is, actually I've got this wrong, excuse me, the inside diameter should be, or the inside radius rather, should be 5 millimeters, and this distance here should be 11, my mistake. Similarly, I can set the radius for the outside of the flange geometry to be 25 millimeters as per the drawing. I can set the flange thickness to be 5 millimeters as per the drawing, and I can set the total height of the component to be 25 millimeters as per the drawing. Now at this particular stage, we've got all of our information correct and on the sketch, but we've still got blue lines, which indicates that we've got an unconstrained sketch. And in this particular case, all of my geometry can be moved up and down. So what we need to do is we need to constrain this so that it's in line with the coordinate system for this particular component. So we can do that by going to the coincident constraint, picking this bottom line here, and then picking the origin for this particular component. That snaps those two together. All of my lines turn black, which indicate that I've got a fully constrained sketch, and all of the details there now, so I can finish this sketch. What I want to do now is I want to create a revolve feature, and I'm going to make sure that for this my origin geometry is visible by clicking the eye icon next to origin, and that lets me see my origin planes and my origin axes. I then go to create and revolve, and I'm going to pick the profile here, which is my L-shaped profile, and then I'm going to select axis in the revolve dialog box, and then pick this axis which will run through the center of the component. And what that has done is it's rotated my 2D sketch 360 degrees about the axis which I have picked. Now this will default to 360 degrees. I can of course change this to any angle that I wish, but for this particular component I do want 360 degrees. This is creating a new body, so I'm happy with this particular feature, and I can press OK. And what that has done is that's created pretty much all of the geometry that we need for this component apart from the chamfers. So I just need to add the chamfers now. So I go to modify, chamfer, I'm going to pick this top edge here, again hold down control, pick the internal edge and pick the outer edge and set the value to 1, and then press OK. And then once again I've now created all the geometry required for that particular component. Okay, thank you very much for your attention, and I will see you in the next video.